Oh, hey everyone. Today we're going to be making this mid-century modern inspired nightstand that I made out of lumber from my home improvement store. This matches the bed and also shelf that I made for my son in a couple videos over the last year. It's got a really nice Blum soft close drawer, which I gotta say is a lot of work to figure out, but once you do, it's just wonderful. All right, let's get after this build.
This project is not special. It started just like all the others. I bought some 2x8s from my home improvement store, and then I cut them to rough length. From there, I planed them all down to about 1¼ inch in thickness. This just lets me hide a bit of that 2x look. While not a necessary step, I also took the time to stabilize the knots with some Starbond CA glue. This just makes it really nice and smooth to the touch. Each panel will be made of 2½ boards, so I cut everything down to width and then I started to glue things up. Of course, the feet are slightly larger than a single board would allow for, so I had to glue 2 pieces together. The glued panels were a bit too large for my planer, so I sanded them smooth with my orbital sander. Then I cut the feet from the blank. I think they are 2x2x3 inches, but I'll include a SketchUp drawing in the video description if you'd like to try to build this yourself. After trimming all the boards down to final dimensions, I started to cut the lap joints. I made this simple jig for cutting taller boards, but you can also just run them along the fence carefully. If you go that route though, getting a feather board like the one I have here is probably going to make things a bit more stable and get a better, cleaner cut in the end. Alternatively, you could just use your circular saw, set the blade length at half thickness of the board, and just make some repeat cuts like this. Then clean it up with a knife or a chisel. This works really well. After I was sure that everything fit correctly, I cut the slots in the back that will hold the back panel. I used the same process as the last steps we followed, but I just used the fence this time and, of course, my featherboard. This glue up was a bit more stressful than normal, and I'm not quite sure why I had so much trouble. It might have been because I didn't have enough clamps, or I felt like I didn't have enough clamps, or they just wouldn't quite clamp in the right way. But in the end, it went pretty well. I just ended up with a little gap here and there, which you'll see here in a second. Then I filled most of those with some homemade wood putty. After some sanding, I cut the back panel from 1/2 inch thick plywood. Nothing quite like a perfect fit. Next, I moved to cutting the drawer front. For this, I'm using an old IKEA pine panel that I had, but you could obviously just use the same pine as the rest of the body, or plywood, as this is going to be painted. I wanted the sides of the top to be rounded to match the rest of the furniture pieces that kind of fit in this series. I also wanted the drawer fronts to be rounded since they're going to sit nice and flush. So I clamped those and then I routed each side. Then I did the same to the bottom and I moved the drawer front all the way to the bottom so that I would get the bottom corners. I'm going to round over the edges of the feet, so I started by marking the centers of the feet blanks so I can have that for later. Then I used my handy painter's tape and CA glue trick to hold them down while I routed their edges. This is really useful if you do not have a router table like me. Okay, now for the drawers. I'm using 7/8 extension Blum slides. As you can see, the instructions are a bit complex. For the drawers themselves, I decided to use the same scrap IKEA panels that I did for the front. After cutting them down, I added a slot for the drawer bottom and I prepped the lap joints. I had to notch out these 1 3/8 inch slots on each side of the drawer back. You'll see what this is for later. I found that using a crosscut sled made easy work of this. You can make the drawer bodies however you want. I used lap joints and I glued and nailed them together. I had accidentally made the slot too large for the bottom panel, so I needed to add a filler. I just used some CA glue and glued in these 1/4 inch strips.
Alright, I've been complaining about how hard these sliders are to install. Not hard, but just complex. And one of the things is you have to drill a little hole here for this little pin to catch on. You can buy a specific jig from Rockler to help you find this spot. However, I found it's fairly easy to actually just install this on the side here and push down, and you can just make sure it's pressed against, get the mark, and you need to be fairly precise. Take this off real quick. Perfect. In my previous videos, I've attached the legs with dowels or other things. In this one, I'm going to try using a couple nails, driving them in right in the center, and then snipping the top and drilling a tiny hole in the base, and then just using that to guide it in while I clamp and glue down. So we're going to see how that goes. I think it should work fairly well. It's mostly just there to keep it aligned. I think that's good enough.
To attach the slides, I'm using these handy Craig drawer supports. I'll link everything I'm using in the video description, but if you don't want to spend money on these, you can also cut some scrap plywood to the right height and then just use that. I've done that before and it works really well. Once you have the slides attached to the body, you could just slide the drawer right back against those hooks and it seats right in there. Next, you have to add these latches to the front corners of the bottom of the drawer, and they're what hold the drawer and connect it to the drawer slides. You can also easily remove the drawer by pressing on the little orange handles. For the drawer pull, I decided to go with a circle in the middle to contrast against all those right angles in the piece. Next, I applied some whitewash to the body and the back panel. This is going to match the rest of the pieces in this furniture series. I used some nice baby blue-ish color paint for the front of the drawer. Then I sprayed on some water-based polyurethane. I had to cut away some of the inner drawer front so that it couldn't be seen when you look through the hole in the front. To attach the drawer front, I applied some CA glue to the drawer itself. Then I laid the drawer front in place. I used a weight to keep things there while it cured. Then I secured it with a whole bunch of screws. After nailing in the back panel, it was done. This was a fun and pretty straightforward project. While the slides themselves are fairly expensive and pretty annoying to install, they are really wonderful to use. In one of my earlier builds, I used some cheaper slides that were like a fifth of the price of these, and they just ruined the project. I don't actually use that thing because the drawers are so terrible. While I don't dislike the blue drawer, I might consider either just painting the front plane of the drawer, if you know what I mean, or maybe just painting the edges of the drawer front. I'm not quite sure. Let me know in the comments if you have other ideas or if you think one of these might work. I'd be curious to hear what other people might come up with. Anyway, thanks for watching. Go ahead and just smash that thumbs up. Just go and crush it. And don't forget to subscribe. All right, I'll see you in the next one.